America, you're about to witness 3 total strangers.
A musician, an artist, and a business professional.
We brought them together to talk about a really hard subject that they had no clue what it was before they got here.
All in the hopes that we can teach you, America, that we can discuss the most controversial topics.
Without being jerks to each other. Imagine that. So stick around, watch the fireworks, because we're about to go live. Welcome to the Art of Dispute, the only show where you can be friended and offended all in the same hour, because that's just how we roll. Like, hey, I like what this guy's saying. Hey, I can't stand that guy. He's rude. It's just how we roll. It is the show. America, we got a problem. You've all experienced it. You know what I'm referring to. You feel it in your very bones.
Testify.
Testify. Can I get a witness?
So much better at it than I
You
am.
posted something online, you make a comment, and the 0 to Nazi effect is the length of time it takes to go from 0 to you're a Nazi. I would now go outside and set fire to your car and punch a dog straight in the face because he was looking mouthy.
Those of you at home watching your TV, grab the back of the set and feel the power.
Yes.
Sometimes Joe, we get some slack. We get some slack over our panel not being the demographic for the topic, or not enough women on the panel. But every viewpoint is represented, and if it's not represented here, it's represented in our group. And if it's not represented in our group, go put it in our group.
Yes. Yes. Artofdispute.com. Hop over there. We've got all the links and whatnot, and we got awesome debate happening 24/7 around the clock. You can post any subject you want, and it will be discussed civilly, which is an amazing thing.
Is that a word? Civilly?
Civilly.
Hell of an adverb, isn't it?
Yes. So we've got a great topic today. It's going to be a fun discussion. All right. Racism, and is being colorblind the solution? You know, you hear people kind of preach that mantra, we just all be colorblind, you know? Or is it actually a hindrance to solving the problem? Do we lose culture? Do we lose the background? That type of thing. And does that actually keep us from solving racism? What is the idea here? Should we be colorblind? Should we not? We're going to discuss that. But before we discuss that, this is part of the exorbitant pay package that is our guests' experience here. All the free booze that they can drink, and a shameless plug.
Wait.
Hello.
Yeah, pass the cup.
Pass the cup. All right, off camera. There we go. All right. So, shameless plugs here. I want to introduce our guest here. To my left, we got Mr. Lee Martin. And Lee, what is the name of your band again?
The Lee Martin Express.
Wow. All I had to remember was Express,
And
I still messed it up.
Thank you, Joe.
The Lee Martin Express. I have to, first of all, I gotta reference this. It has been, like 20 years that we've known each other. We were in a band together, and
Yes.
I'll have to share it with production team so they can throw up my '90s picture with my hair where it's down to here.
Please.
Yeah,
More than one, also.
Yeah. One of the best guitar players I've ever known. You guys definitely want to stay tuned because end of the show, Lee and his cohort Juan
Hernandez
is going to be rocking out a great song. We already caught a little piece of the warm up, so looking forward for that at the end of the show here. Where? Okay, you'll tell us. You're going to tell us where they can find you and all that kind of stuff, and we'll have it on the screen. It'll be right there somewhere.
Shoot a bug in there.
Yeah, so just follow the link and make sure you check out his music. Right. Up next, Mr. Scott Apley, returning veteran over here. You've been on a bunch of times.
All formats?
Since the very beginning. So, tell me, what is what are you promoting today? I don't know what you're promoting today.
Right, so of course we have municipal elections coming up in 1 week from today, actually. So May 4th is the election for all your city councils, your school boards. And I am running for city council in Dickinson. So if you're in the South Houston area, crammed in between Texas City and League City is my hometown of Dickinson, and I would appreciate your vote. Any questions, you can find them at voteapley.com.
And let me
Best
tell
of
you,
luck to you, man.
absolutely. Absolutely. Let me tell you, I don't live in Dickinson, so I can't vote there. But I will say, without blinking an eye, I would absolutely, and I have promoted him on my own personal page. This guy. I'll tell you straight up, as you'll witness on this panel, I think Scott's greatest asset as a human being, and why he would be somebody you should vote for, is that even if he adamantly disagrees with you, he will spend the time to invest in understanding your point of view, right? And that's, I think, all you should. You can't say that about a lot of people.
That's kind of the point of the show, too.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
So, yeah.
He models the show, which is why he's been a repeat guest on the show. He models the attitude that we're trying to promote, and I don't think you could ask for any more in a politician on that front.
I could ask more from you, though.
Yes, the filled beer
pass.
Yes, Mr. James Charlet.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
James and I go 10 rounds on social media, like on the regular. But similarly,
I was like, actually, when you were talking about your long hair, I'm like, damn, I've known Joe for a decade, and I've never seen the hair. So,
yeah.
He still has it.
Yeah.
That's a bad one.
I will tell you, like, we disagree on stuff all the time, but very similarly, James is always, you're always really informed on stuff, and it's not coming from a place of ignorance. I'm like, I don't care if people disagree with me. I hate when they don't know what the heck they're talking about, and they're adamant about it.
You're right. Well, I love it when people, I understand that people can have the same facts and come to a different conclusion.
Yeah,
you know, and
exactly.
we can all agree on the facts and still disagree, and agree to disagree, or come to a compromise, and I love that. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So give us a little. What are you promoting today? I actually got my notes now that they came out. It was my fault for not getting these
before.
Yeah.
You know who I am. No.
We all know.
That's everybody. Yeah. No. Today, my background, I used to be a legal executive for Experian, and now I do a lot of consumer advocacy. I work with a lot of consumers with credit, help a lot of people with mortgage. So best place to find me, facebook.com/thecreditexpert. So that's where you find me. And I got my professional, James Charlet. I'm easy to find on there. So you can see a lot of what I'm about on both of those for sure.
Yeah,
so,
very cool, very cool. And since I have it now, and I've got to at least use one of these.
Please.
One funny thing about James that most people don't know is that he was on a all-male competitive dance team in the early 90s called the Vanilla Hammers?
Yep.
Vanilla Hammers. Nice!
I thought everyone was going to disclose something embarrassing.
Right?
You got stuck, though.
I did.
And links to that will be found right now.
Yes.
Along with Joe's long hair.
I think it's all still on VHS. It's unfortunately all still on VHS.
Scott,
I'll give one up. I was on a unicycling and juggling team until I was 13.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is that does not shock me at all.
No. It's not common knowledge.
Scott was the mascot at Sam Houston State University for 3 months in 1994. So there you go.
Eat 'em up, cats.
I like it.
And this isn't necessarily funny, but we were in a band together.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And Joe was just this short of spandex. I swear, he was this short of it. Had the long hair. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
I'm picturing David Lee Roth right now.
Yeah. Straight up.
Seeing this associated with spandex is not a good idea.
No need to thank me, Scott. You're for it, bro.
Oh, okay.
We're starting out well.
Bullet points. Give me your take here. Let's just go around the line here, go down the line. Racism is being colorblind, how we solve it. I mean, it's sure as heck been around forever. If we're going to evolve as humankind here, is being colorblind, not seeing the color of the skin, the solution? Or would that actually be more of a problem? Ooh, that was a good question. I wonder what they're going to say. Let's stick around and find out. We'll be right back. colorblind, not seeing the color of the skin, the solution, or would that actually be more of a problem? Your thoughts?
I think absolutely it's going to be the solution. And I just back that up by this really awesome book that I read all the time, and it's Be Able to Know Your Love, One for the Other. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Scott?
I agree with the answer. So I believe that being colorblind, generally speaking, is the solution. But it also requires a huge amount of self-awareness of the realities of the way that the culture and history plays into those things. So the solution is found in being colorblind by taking the information that we have around us and applying that in a way to move society forward.
Okay.
I think that on a very, I don't want to say superficial, but at a 36,000 foot level, that being colorblind can be a big part of the solution. I think that the way that society is right now, a lot of people, their identity is defined sometimes, not necessarily because they wanted it, but because that's the way society has already pushed them into their skin color being a huge part of their identity. And so being colorblind to that for a lot of people is going to be offensive to them. I think perhaps a long-term solution is colorblind is a huge part of that, but in the short term, it's only a part of what we can do to fix a much broader, much more ingrained problem.
Okay. Let me ask, from a cultural standpoint, this kind of comes up, and I think it was underlying in a couple of your comments. If tomorrow we snapped our fingers and everybody was colorblind, is that from a cultural awareness? Like, sometimes we say that there was experiences that different populations have went through, and without being aware of those experiences, then just all of a sudden not being racist or just not being aware of color isn't really a solution, right? Because I think there's a part of the empathy that gets lost in that process, right? Am I making sense at all? In that
hypothetical scenario, if you snapped your fingers and everybody was colorblind and we had no recollection of how color had defined anything, I think that just biologically we're predisposed to use our vision as our number one way of interacting with the world. So I think that almost immediately we would still, color. If we were actually colorblind and couldn't see color, that's one thing, but that's not what we're talking about,
right,
obviously. I think we would immediately still see colors and say, why do you look different than me? Why do you look different than me? And we would still have to answer those
big
questions.
Ears and, whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is, exactly.
No, that's exactly, and we need to take that a step further, because that really lies in the heart of the question, and that is we have a human nature. And there's the best parts of human nature and there's the worst parts of human nature. And the truth is that there is an ingrained instinctual tribal identity within us for protection, right? For protection,
Absolutely.
And so even if you eliminated color completely, everybody was the same color visually, we would still find ways, identities, to group ourselves into little subsections. And once we had one of those groups, we would naturally, part of our flawed human nature, we would actually think that this group has superior identity or properties or whatever to this inferior group. And so that's where, again, the self-awareness comes in, to understand the inherent value in every human life. And that value is consistent across all properties.
I want to give you an example. This goes way back for me. This was actually something of a very personal experience. I don't know. I never have. I've never thought in these terms of being racially motivated at all. I acknowledge that my biggest bias that I've experienced in my life, and it was definitely a real bias that I had to confront in myself, was if you showed a willing ignorance, a willful ignorance. I made the comment earlier. If they're adamant about their position yet very uninformed, I would be brutal with that person, right? And just mop the floor with them and be very hurtful in the process. And it was something I had to challenge myself about and get better about. And and work on.
We resemble that remark.
I have friends of every flavor, but one of my friends who happens to be black,
Weird is great.
who was watching the conversation play out, he said, Joe, he goes, you are being so objective and so emotionally disconnected from it, he goes, that you've come off as being cold and unempathetic. And he goes, people have to know that you care first, right, before they can hear you.
Mm-hmm. Problem being a paramedic, day one.
Well,
Respond to that in the context of this.
No, please.
So something that seems off topic, bear with me for 20 seconds here, is that,
Sure.
like, I remember talking to my great-grandfather. and hearing about the tobacco farms, and then I did go back and work on them a little bit, but I'm the furthest thing in the world from a farmer. But those stories and that lifestyle resonate in my head because of how I grew up hearing those stories from my grandfather, my great-grandfather. It doesn't make me a farmer, but it makes that a very real part of my heritage. Now, if you're black and you grew up hearing stories of your father being hit with fire hoses and your grandfather being hung in a tree and all this, we can say, well, nobody that's alive and 30 years old right now was a victim of racism, but that's very real to them. That's a very real part of who they are, because the same way that farming and that community life is a part of my life, but it probably in a much more, mine is very passive and idyllic, and that one's not. But they grew up hearing those same stories. And so for you, I remember that part. I was part of that conversation, and you were very objective. You were very legalistic. You looked at it and what could be proved beyond a shadow of a doubt. And you were very, just objective about it. But taking into consideration that whether or not these people actually experienced that firsthand themselves, they did. Because the same way that I did with the experiences of my grandparents when they told me those stories, that's part of my heritage. And so I think, unfortunately, because the color has been something, even if not as much, and I'm not saying none, but is not as much now as it was 40 years ago or 80 years ago or 120 years ago, it's still there and it's still being passed down by people that they know directly to them. And so ignoring that part, that would make us seem as white guys, would make us seem cold and indifferent to the reality of their upbringing and their family's struggle.
So would that not be an argument for the hindrance topic?
Yeah.
Possible, absolutely.
Well, yes and no. So I don't think so.
I disagree.
I don't think
I'm going to set fire to your car now, sir.
I don't think you necessarily validated being colorblind as a hindrance in that. But what you did highlight is the importance of having a conversation in the same context, right? So if you're being super objective and everybody else in the conversation is having this conversation through the prism of their history and their family identity, in order for you to have a successful conversation with them, you're going to have to meet them where they are. You're going to have to engage in the context that everybody is having the conversation. So in that thing, what you can do is you can validate what somebody's saying. Say, hey, I understand that this country has a dark past. This country and your family has experienced a lot of that. But ultimately, our goal, our vision is justice for all people, an equal justice system. And if we look at this situation objectively, we have X, Y, Z, lay out your case. And what you've done is you've validated someone's history and their opinion without deviating from your objective analysis, and being colorblind in that context would be the solution.
Okay. We are about to go to a break, which is crazy. We got to take a hard break. It flies by so doggone fast. So I'm going to give you guys a question to think about. Ashley Sevilla in our group. Sevilla? I'm working on it here. I don't know.
Is it 2 L's?
Yeah.
Sevilla.
Yeah, I'm blind from
Put
way
the
over
sound
here.
out underneath in the comments.
I will tell you. From this distance. I don't know if it's 1 L or 2. She says, I think colorblindness is a fallacy. Do we want a generic population, or do we want to embrace rich diversity?
I said broaden your spectrum.
Colorblindness would require people to separate themselves from their cultural traditions. So there's something to think about.
I love that.
As we go to the break, and we'll address it when we come back. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's been like an hour. We're all drunk.
I resemble everyone.
All right, welcome back to the Art of Dispute. We're having a great conversation here. Racism, how do we solve it? Is being colorblind the solution? We just all no longer see color, or would that actually be more of a problem than a solution? That's what we're diving into here. And before the break, I asked you all a question. What was it?
Yes.
Why do we park in driveways and why do we drive in parkways?
I have. So it's mind blowing. Yes, Ashley Sylvia, who's actually a regular in our group.
Thanks for your comments, Ashley.
Great comments. She always has a lot of really salient points to offer. And so she comments, or she says, I think colorblindness is a fallacy. Do we want a generic population? Or do we want to embrace rich diversity? Colorblindness would require people to separate themselves from their cultural traditions.
Mm-hmm.
So she's definitely more on the side of it's a hindrance. If we became colorblind, we would lose the rich cultural background.
The color.
Why?
So what do you guys think about that?
I don't think we would lose it. I think if we lost it, we'd be pretty lax in our way of thinking. And if we're thinking along this lines of being colorblind, I think we're probably pretty much advancing down the road. I think it's a matter of, just as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. You're not going to lose your culture, but you're going to learn something else about somebody else's culture, whether you like it or not.
You don't think?
Go ahead.
You don't think you're going to offend anybody by not acknowledging where they come from?
Oh, I say you acknowledge where they come from. You embrace where they come from. That's what I'm saying.
So how do you do that without knowing where they come from? Because color's gone. I mean, to me, color. I'm an abstract artist. Color is everything to me. I mean, I want you guys to think more spectrum. The spectrum is from white to black, has all the colors in between. So I say, widen your spectrum versus go colorblind.
I think Ashley's right, and I think she's also wrong. Right? I don't think that. First of all, color and culture are not. They're not they're not linked. They're not mutually exclusive. And everything that she's saying and the tone that she's saying it is correct, right? We need to embrace not just on color, but on life experience and religious experience and size and height. We need to be able to relate to each other and appreciate the culture. Food, cooking, we need to be able to incorporate those things and get the best from all cultures. So and that's the tone that I take her question, but it still doesn't. So when I think of the colorblind question, I'm thinking about applying it to laws and justice and the way that we interact with one another, the way that we find value in people. And when it comes to those questions, I don't believe that color has any part of that equation. So great question. It's a great way to bring new thought and new breadth. We'll get that. I was wrong, but scope. To widen
right too.
to widen the context, as I was saying earlier, of the conversation that we're having. Diversity in everything, in intelligence and expertise. Right. Some people are great artists. Some people are great in business and stuff like that. So all those things come together to make this beautiful tapestry of the greater culture, right? All these individual cultural pieces.
Tapestry,
Man,
right?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I honestly think the whole concept of colorblindness is one that is almost exclusively unique to the American experience, because the word slavery, but in almost 99.99999% of the world, and time going back thousands of years, slavery didn't have a color component to it. Oppression didn't have a color component. It's been more of a class or a nationalistic or a regionalistic component.
They want you to think it's a race.
They really do. But outside of America, colorblindness would solve absolutely zero. It wouldn't. It's not even a hindrance or a or a benefit. It's a non-starter because
it's not an issue needing.
It has more to do with your tribe or your country.
I see the colorblindness more of a band-aid.
That's right, and it would only apply within the United States of America because, and it really, as much as yes, has there been racism against people of Spanish or Latino descent and people of Asian or Native American, absolutely, there's been oppression and all kinds of things there. But really, I believe that when we talk about colorblindness in realistic modern application to U.S. society, we're talking about black and white in terms of, and so what we're really trying to do is wash out that component of our history that existed from essentially, call it Jamestown or Plymouth Rock from 1617 or 1588 all the way up until about 1978. We're trying to wash that out and find an easy way to get over this hump that's existed.
So I think that. So we've got a problem in the conversation because of what you're saying, and it made me think of it, and that is that I think we have a perceived problem that we have a injustice. We have injustice within our criminal justice system, right? That African Americans are disproportionately arrested, convicted, and sentenced for equivalent crimes. And like I usually make the argument that injustice is actually born more out of class differentiation, because there are plenty of African Americans who are rich who can hire the good attorneys to get their cases dismissed. But you have poor,
2 or 3 speeding tickets every other year.
You have poor, communities, and whites and blacks and all races and ethnicities are victims equivalently of being poor in the justice system. And then the last thing is that I think that a lot of this stuff, like a hate crime statute and these kind of ideas, are born from good intentions, right? We want to even the playing field because we feel that this segment of society has been unfairly, treated over a certain amount of time.
Vulnerability.
But it's a disservice, right? Because now you've picked another set of losers. So if we really want to even the playing field, then we need to make everybody on the same playing field and not try to let somebody catch up, because if you have to catch somebody up, you have to push somebody else back down. We need to be colorblind, and we need to apply justice equivalently across all people in our society.
That's right. Of course, that's blind justice, and of course that's the old blind justice. Exactly.
So are you guys all on the same page then when it comes to affirmative action?
The only time that race is supposed to come into that is when you have 2 100% equal candidates. You're not supposed to take a lesser candidate over a better one simply based on their race. It's supposed to be, we got 2 equal candidates, and which one are we going to end up giving the chance to? Okay, well, this one had a tougher time coming up because of their race, so we're going to give them an opportunity. It's only supposed to come into play in that last room.
The government gives us the money to hire.
Yeah.
Man, I actually don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'm a huge opponent of affirmative action. In that context, like I'm okay with it. Like I don't perceive affirmative action to be that.
I think it gets misapplied.
But if it were, I would not necessarily have a problem with that. Another thing is that it's hard to plug into that equation that for every 5 white people that you hire, you should hire 5 black people, right? But the proportion that we take up in the society is so much different,
right?
That isn't an equal application of hiring standards and all that kind of stuff. But the idea of all things being equal, and then taking into consideration upbringing and historical situations and factors, I surprisingly would actually be in favor of something like that.
Ooh, so hot! I got the vapors. They're bringing the heat. Better stick around and see what's gonna happen next.
Do you have a sick roof? Well, DR Roofing Services can help. We will examine your roof, diagnose the problem, and prescribe a solution. Does your home need a facelift? DR Roofing Services offers a variety of general contracting services to get your home happy and healthy again. Honest, reliable, and trustworthy. DR Roofing Services. We make house calls.
How much does it cost you to watch TV? The average household pays between $100 and $150 every month. Finally fed up with the rising cost of cable and satellite? Cut the cord and start watching the channels you want at a fraction of the cost. With IXQ TV, you'll have access to thousands of live TV channels, including sports, movies, news, premium networks, kids channels, and even local channels for as low as $39 a month. Stream in HD on your TV, tablet, phone, or even computer with multiple devices streaming at the same time. IXQ TV requires no contracts or credit checks, no installation or cancellation fees, no bogus surcharges or hidden fees. $39 a month means $39 a month. Say goodbye to high cable bills forever. Visit mycablebillstinks.com today.
I gotta carry up this. So we're talking about history and relating to the past, and so this is years and age. So if we're going colorblind, are we gonna go age blind? Where Joe doesn't want somebody to vote under 30. You know? You kind of see where I'm at with that?
True story.
To me, it's kind of the same thing. Is they have a history, just like a 30-year-old now has a history of 10 years being an adult. So, I mean, how do you feel that it's kind of right there on the same level? I feel is by taking away color. Are we going to start taking away age next? And then
why do young men have to pay $300 for insurance that would cost $75 to someone else?
Right.
No, that's
good point.
That's completely fine.
That's absolutely.
There's risk actuarials involved.
I
in
agree.
That. Okay.
I do. I agree. but I was to that point.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, it's
to that
sexist.
point.
You're being,
ageist. You're being sexist. Right.
So I definitely don't think that law should be applied differently based on age. But I think that like every society, and it could be different from one society to the next, has a moral compass, a moral standing. And I think that when we talk about laws for children and we talk about laws for the elderly, usually, hopefully, those are derived from a place of morality, that we need to protect people who are in stages of their life where they are kind of unable to be protective of themselves. But as far as finding value in somebody, there should, like a 5-year-old has no more worth or value than an 80-year-old, than a 30-year-old, than whatever, and so I don't think that they're equivalent.
5-year-olds can vote now.
Yeah.
I've known some 5-year-olds who had more business voting than 55-year-olds. So.
And then in the U.S. we have the age of 18, right, where we draw a line where we separate
for something.
a child
Yeah.
from an adult, someone capable of having law applied to them in a certain way. So
Scott McQueen in our group had a question. He said, why is our identity so tied to race? Is that some sort of a natural progression, or is it more orchestrated?
Orchestrated by politicians.
Oh, thank you. I didn't have to say it.
Politicians use race.
You're awesome.
Politicians use race to divide us, right? And they force us into boxes where that is our primary way to identify ourselves. Because as long as we have two sides,
Fill it out on every form, you can get a job, right?
as long as we have two sides who perceive that their interests are at odds with one another, you'll be able to raise money, you'll be able to get votes, and you'll be able to perpetuate political power.
Kind of like what we're doing.
While all the people on the lower
can't
end
talk civilly.
No, that's right. It's if you can divide people, then you can get them to pick one side and give their money and effort and their goodwill towards it.
Yep.
And I would take it even one step farther, and I think that politicians are just another tool of what I think all the divisions, whether it's nationality, whether it's race identity, whether it's religious identity, those are almost all used by a very powerful, moneyed group that control politicians through lobbying.
We're talking about the Illuminati. I'm out.
No, I'm not Illuminati.
I'm out of here.
No, it's just we're just saying it's all a degree, and you actually said it earlier perfectly. It's all a degree of class. It has it's somebody is not wealthy, it doesn't matter what color their skin are, they are not protected. They are more likely to be taken advantage of without money at their disposal. And in that case, the colorblindness, they really are colorblind. If you're poor, colorblindness comes into play because you're not going to be able to afford proper protection.
I got a crazy question for y'all. All right, bear with me on the first question here. It'll seem totally out of left field. Transgender.
Oh,
big
thank you for
thing.
that. I forgot.
You know, in the last 5 years, really. I mean, like very, very recent. It's asserted that it's a hate crime. That is violence. I've heard people use that it is violence to not use gender pronouns. Preferred gender pronouns.
They.
Right?
They. You win every time.
Right. So, on that front, there are people who identify as a different race.
Mm-hmm.
Tomfoolery.
How much? There used to be a law in the
I say
South.
it's a different culture. They
There used-
identify as
yeah.
a different culture.
There used to be a law in the South that said not one drop.
Yeah.
And it was throughout the old Confederacy,
Yes.
if you even had one drop of black blood,
Ooh.
you were black.
Yeah.
According to state law for decades in the South.
Yeah.
So what is it, Tom? I mean, is
Wealthy
it
plantation owners.
is it
Gotcha.
wrong for somebody from Alabama that has one drop of black blood to self-identify as black? I mean, the government would have identified them as that for decades.
Yeah.
I did the ancestry
I
test.
actually made the argument that I believe there's more science to support the idea of transracial than transgender.
Well,
but-
and so if you say, hey, I'm one drop black, that is objectively true statement.
I'm
And so if
5%
you
African,
identify
but
as,
there's no black
you know,
Yeah, exactly.
culture. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
What is
black
like-
culture, but there's
My grandma was 100% Cherokee,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
never grew up in a plant or on a Jesus Christ. I never grew up on a tribe with a tribe. I mean, I don't reservation. Thank you, Jesus. I can't. My cultural experience. That's not fair to me. It's not fair to claim that. But would I perhaps have a right to? Sure,
So,
but I'm not.
literally, like, last 2 minutes, right? I recently asked it. There was actually somebody who they made their 15 minutes of fame because there was some middle-aged white dude who identified as a female Filipino.
Yes.
Right? It was in Florida.
Okay.
He was on the news, right? Now, if laws are already like underway, like New York, a few places where like you have to use the preferred gender pronouns, all that sort of thing, you can identify in essence as male, female, whatever you want, and the rest of us have to play along. Do y'all support the same idea with race? If science says, well, I mean, I know you're male, but we'll go ahead and call you female, and you can put that on applications and whatever else, and go that route. Why is it any different for race? Could a person say, yeah, I'm Filipino, despite the fact that I'm a middle-aged white dude? I'm Filipino.
Name Sven.
words words are not and cannot be violence. Only violence can be violence. And so when you talk about color or whatever, so you're talking about subjective relativity, right? Where I can decide from one moment to the next what box I fit into, and that is a recipe for disaster that can never work in a legal framework, right? Because what if it's illegal? What if it's illegal for a man to go into the restroom? Well, I'm a man all the way up here, and then when I walk into the restroom, I decide that I'm a woman, so now I've no longer broken the law. You can identify yourself around laws if they're subjective. They have to be objective. Okay.
I agree.
Anybody else?
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Last comment.
Well, the one thing that I would say is that I don't think many, and this has really not to do with the topic at hand, but I don't think there's a whole lot of transgender that are subjectively changing at the last moment. I mean, I have several very close friends
That's a good point.
that are transgendered. They have lived as women for years. They are women for all intent and purpose. If you saw them on the street, you would think they were attractive. Them using a men's bathroom would be much more uncomfortable to everybody. They are from the street. They are beautiful women, but they're not. They weren't born that way.
Been to
You
Thailand?
don't want.
Is that what you're saying?
No, no. But my point is
Don't
only
write
that
their names in
I
the
understand.
snow.
I understand what you're saying, and if that was the case, if it's a subjective last-minute decision, I agree with you.
And it could be.
And it could be,
Right.
but I don't think my friends that I'm talking about, no one is going to have a second guess. And believe me, you don't want them in the men's bathroom, and you don't have to worry about your daughters in the women's bathroom with them. It just doesn't. That's not the.
So we got to get out of here, but we need to see this guy jam out. So Lee and Juan, what are you guys going to play, and where can we find it?
Joe, we're fixing to play our infomercial song called More, and you can find it on our Facebook page, Lee Martin Express, and you can also find it on YouTube. Because there's more. Wait, there's more.
To be a good man, but if you call my name, I'll be right at your door. Never claimed to be a sane man, but I'm crazy through and through, but I can love you more, so much more. All the sands in the sea, more than all the leaves in the trees. Sweet baby, take a chance on me, 'cause there's more. But wait, there's more. Ah, yeah. So much more. Claim to be a wise man, but I know enough to know that you're the one for me. You're the one for me. There have been times I've been a bad man, but time and time again I got just what you need, and I can love you more. The sands in the sea, more than all the leaves in the trees. Sweet baby, take a chance on me, 'cause there's more, so much more. You're what I'm living for, so much more. More. But yes. Wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. I love it. You guys
on YouTube.
Yeah, you guys killed it. I loved it. Awesome job. Awesome job. Great having you all on. Great show, guys. Hey, another great show in the can, as they say. Make sure you follow us on the artofdispute.com. Hop over there. We got all the links and all that sort of thing. And subscribe to the YouTube channel where this song will be. And we had all the links and all the jazz for them where you can find the actual song and all that sort of stuff. So, another great show. We'll be back next week.
How am I bad at clapping right now?